In today's tutorial, it's going to be a continuation on the course EDU233, which is all about teaching method. Right? In our last class, we talked about questioning and we talked about taking the question pause. Today, we're going to be talking about the kinds of question before we talk about evaluation and testing. With this being said, let's just straight into it. Now, having discussed what questioning is and taking a question pause, in our last class, EDU233. Today, we're going to be taking our bearing from the next action after taking the question pause. Okay, now this is on the side of the pupil, the student. The next key to act is to what? Actively listening, all right, to the tutee's response. Now, this sounds pretty easy, but it is harder than you may think. Listening is an acquired skill. All right. Listening is an acquired skills. Okay. Like we said, as you as a tutor, as an instructor, has asked the question, and students has taken the pause. So the next thing now, in the sense that students have asked you, the tutor, the question, all right, and you've encouraged a question pause, all right, the next thing now is for students to wait for the response of the tutor, all right, of the tutees. Now we have, this sounds easy, but it is harder than you may think. Listening is an acquired skill. In normal conversation, we don't really listen to others, all right. Now, that is obvious. In normal conversation, we don't listen to others, but when it comes to learning, all right, you have to pay attention to details. Now, as an instructor, okay, you need to ask what we call open-ended question by passing questions that require more than yes or no. Okay, don't forget, it's all about teaching method, and we have been considering what best method, all right, is it to apply when teaching, all right, when instructing, whether lecturing or whatever. All right, what best method? And we've been talking about questioning now, and basically it is said here that it is better to ask, okay, open-ended question. Question that has to do with just yes and or no are close-ended question. But questions that has to do with students expressing themselves are open-ended. Respond to encourage the tutee. All right. Now are the students. So we have that as that. Now, where do you think we should start? What are the steps involved in working this problem? What is the definition? These are good examples of questions like this. These are very good examples of questions like this. When you let students, you throw questions to students that they can answer. All right, questions to students that they can respond to. Right, these are the open-ended questions. All right, these questions are there to asking questions, all right, that encourages, all right, students, or let's use tutees, to respond. Okay, and the examples of these questions are: what is the definition? What are the steps involved in working this problem? What do you think we should? Where do you think we should start? All right, where do you think we should start? So we have that as that. Now we also have ask probing questions. All right, probing. Ask. We have probing question. When we say ask probing questions, what are we talking about? Probing questions follow up on students' contribution. All right, what will happen if what you said is true? All right, these are probing questions. This kind of question follow up on a student's contribution. Questions that follows up on a tutee contribution. Okay, it's a process, let's not forget that. So you follow everything as it is going, all right, you follow the process. Okay, so we have that as that. Now we also have tutee summaries. Okay, along with listening, it is important to spur your students into giving summary of what has been covered. All right, it's also good to encourage students. This is a measure, right, a yardstick for being sure that okay, indeed they have been able to get something. Your tutees have been able to get something. All right, that's a tutee summaries. Okay, speaking of which, we are simply talking about along with listening, it is important to spur students into giving summaries. All right, spur tutee into giving summaries. All right, just to ensure that okay, you are certain that they have learned something. Now, the simple summary will help you determine if you will move on. Okay, if you move on to the if you will move on, okay, to another topic, or you need to stay within the present one. Now, if the summary is difficult for students, stay where you are until, all right, he or she can repeat it with ease, basically. Now, let's not forget that this is a process. Listening after you've taken the question, pause. All right, ask open-ended question, ask probing questions, to tell summaries. This summary is very important. Why? Because it is at this point you will be able to tell whether your student has been following or they have only been playing along. All right, and it is said there that if a student still have issues giving the summaries, then it is a sign that you need to put in more effort on that particular student and make them understand before you actually continue. All right, so we have other types of questions are brainstorm questions and focal questions. All right, we have the other types of which are brainstorm and focal questions. All right, so we have that as that. Now, meaning of questions and answer. The questions and answer method is something referred to as Socratic method. All right, Socratic method. Question and answer is something also known as the Socratic method. You know, that was in poll 251. We were talking about great political thinkers, and Socrates here happens to be one of the great Western political thinkers, and his kind of teaching method is different from every other kind of teaching methods because he believes so much in dialogue. He engaged in a lot of dialogue with his students just to ensure that okay, this person understand what we're talking about. He believes so much in dialogue. He engaged, talked to his students, asked, he pretend as if he doesn't know, so he can hear, he can grasp what the students understand about the topic sentence or whatever it is they are discussing. All right, so but before then I want us to quickly take this to know what it means. All right, like the brainstorming question. All right, these are questions that have to do with that requires a tutee to think through. All right, requires a tutee to think through. All right, brainstorm, think through. All right, think through what could have led a lot of questions. All right, and we have the likes of the focal question, which is more of a guide for a project. All right, product or business innovation. All right, these are specific, all right, questions on a subject matter. All right, focused on what we refer to as, all right, guide for a project or other product or business innovation. Okay, so we have that as that. Now let's continue. Okay, so like I said, question and answer. We are taking our reference from Socrates. All right, Socrates happens to be a Greek philosopher who used, all right, question to probe students. All right, question and answer. Okay, Socrates is a method, all right, referred to as a Socrates method. This is referred to as a Socrates method. All right, and Socrates here happens to be a Greek philosopher that uses what? Question to probe his students. The use of questions to probe students. These are questions to probe students. All right, so we have, however, Socrates was dealing with mature students whom by today educational standards are postgraduates, although in that case it is different. Question and answer method is one of the most common method used by secondary school teacher. All right, the most common method used by secondary school teachers. The most common method used by secondary school teachers. Okay, so we have that, and the pattern typically begins with the teacher asking a question and then recognizing one of the students who answers. Now, the pattern typically begins with the teacher asking a question and then recognizing one student who answers. All right, the question is being asked by the instructor, and one of the tutor respond to the question. All right, and teacher reacts verbally. All right, and the students also, all right, respond, ask a question on other student, then respond. It's just more of like interactive. All right, interactive. So we have the aims of questions. Basically, they are to find out the past needs. All right, questions find out the past that needs further treatment or practice. When you ask questions, you get to know if what you have taught in the past is understood or it needs further treatment. All right, question enable teacher to read, all right, his pupil's mind. All right, enable teacher to read the people's minds. And we have the kinds of question. Okay, so let me erase the board so we can take that very quickly. So we have kinds questions. So we have the likes of presentation or teaching question, pulse question, guide questions, summary questions, drill questions, and 5 of them. So let's take it one step at a time. We have the presentation or teaching question. Presentation or teaching question. Okay. Now, these are questions used when lesson is in its prime stage. For example, that is when the teacher is actually demonstrating or explaining the processes and aims to impact the knowledge of the pupil. All right, presentation and or teaching questions. Questions used when lesson. Questions used when lesson is at its prime. All right, when lesson is at its prime. All right, here teachers use a demonstration or explanation process to aim the impact of knowledge. We have the pulse question. I think we talked about this. Pulse question. All right, these pulse questions are used because they provide useful break in the lesson to assure teachers that pupils are attentively following. All right, useful. All right, useful break in the lesson. All right, to ensure that tutees are following. To ensure that tutees are following. All right, we have the guide questions. The guide questions are asked to direct the children special attention to some important points. Guide questions. Guide questions. Okay. Direct children special attention to some important. Direct tutees special attention to some important points. Okay, and we have the drill questions. All right, are used, should be asked at the beginning or at the end of the lesson, and should not take long. All right, too long a time, say 5 minutes. All right, the drill questions, just like the name says, drill, are questions that are asked at the beginning. Drill questions asked at the beginning. All right, at the beginning slash ending of a lesson. All right, not more than 5 minutes. Okay, that's for the drill question, and we have that as that. Now let's quickly touch on what we call the testing and examination evaluation. Now, when we say testing and examination evaluation, we are talking about testing and examination in essence, and value judge or decision is made from a variety of observation and from the background of the evaluation. All right, testing and examination. Why do we have test? Why do we have examination? Basically, it's just to test, all right, capacity, not capacity in essence, but it's just to test how well the student has been studying, how well they have been following their series of classes and series of all right, subjects. Now, the process involves outline, obtaining and providing useful information which are to be employed by judgment decision. All right, judgment decision focused. All right, when you test, when you examine a child, it's just for you to know how well the child has been following classes. All right, evaluation goes beyond the task of testing or measurement. All right, measuring the tutee's academic performance. All right, just about how well this child or the student is doing in the class. All right, and definitely examination are agreed that, all right, it is not the true test of knowledge. All right, testing or examination is not the true test of knowledge, because somehow, some way, a child might fail an exam or a test, but doesn't mean the child is dumb. All right, it is just to be sure how well a child has been following classes. All right, and that's why tests and exams is usually set on the base of classes you've attended previously. Okay, so I think we are almost done with the material, so we'll call it a wrap here for today. I think with 2 more classes we should be done with this material, and we'll move to the next thing. All right, thank you very much, everyone. I believe you've been able to gain a thing or two into this class. Do well to submit your notes, and I look forward to seeing all the subsequent tutorials. Have a wonderful evening.